similar for here. I think when it comes to the actual in the United States, for where here is, in the United States, education about Pan-Africanism in schools is non-existent. That just does not happen in the kindergarten through, like in elementary through high school. That is not something that's built into the core curriculum, and it never really has been in any public school system. Of course, there are college programs, especially because we have HBCUs, historically Black colleges and universities, where people will start, and even at predominantly white institutions, there are Pan-African studies, and those things evolved over time at the university level. Once upon a time, it was not even available at the university level, but it's more heavily found at the university level now. But for us, I don't think Pan-Africanism is definitely not something that's even taught at home. It's more, it just depends on the person and it depends on the parent, but I don't think it's something that is just core to who every Black person is in the United States. Whereas how Nathalie describes in Haiti, this is a core component of just how people are raised in their families. I was raised by a Pan-African father and a mother who had a very liberation activist centered mindset. And my father would give me books and all of these different things. So I would learn about a lot of things from a very young age, but it was exclusively at home. But when I was younger, though, for me, what I feel like Pan-Africanism has changed over the years, because the only people I ever learned about when I was younger were straight Black men. So I didn't necessarily learn about Pan-African women identity. So I think that when I was younger, my lens of Pan-Africanism was like, say aloud, we Black and we proud, and we're wearing Africa pendants, and people have on dashikis, and they're wearing bootleg kente cloth that they probably can't even say what country the bootleg kente cloth was supposed to come from. And it's this idea in people's minds of something that they actually have no real connection to. And so and when I say that in terms of the concept of our roots being in Africa. And so a lot of times I experience people idealizing Africa, like everything was perfect in Africa. Nothing wrong ever happened in Africa. And then the white man came and ruined everything. Black people are perfect. Africa is wonderful. Let's do everything that they do in Africa and not do anything that white people do, right? That was like the energy of like the old school US based Pan-Africanism. It was very male, it was very homophobic, it was very anti-woman, anti-Black woman. It was like, and so I didn't realize when I was younger that, one, I wasn't really learning about Africa. Two, I wasn't even really understanding what a limited view of Blackness I was being taught, in terms of this very Black male, this is how you be Black kind of thing.
Interesting. It's really interesting that you both from different contexts have tackled Pan-Africanism, to some extent. And we actually are in the continent, I'm talking about my own country, we haven't in school, for instance. Only, like I said, on Africa's Day, it's a big party in the country. It's a whole week of party that we celebrate Africa. I think that's the only time that we really celebrate Africa as a whole. But in school, we do not really tackle much of the continent, our own history. It's really poor. And at home, we don't really talk about it much. Even in the street, Africa was seen as this thing of, ooh, it's a continent and we are an island. We do not really belong there, but we are Africans, something like that. So my upbringing was more looking at my parents, and they traveled the world and they were very open and they always left the door open for me to also travel. So that helped a lot. A lot of people back home do not have any connections with the continent. And when somebody speaks their local, tongue, mother tongue, they'll be like, oh, they sound so African, you know.
Mm,
Reaction is
mm,
that. So
mm-hmm.
there is this disassociation with the continent to some extent. Nowadays it's getting way better. Young people are more like, they research more, they want to read more, they want to find out more what's going on in the continent, they want to actually travel more. So the doors, have been opening, and then people actually trying to discover a bit more of the continent. But there's something that I want to tell you that's it's very bad for our image, is that our history, the Portuguese history, says that they discovered our islands, but that's not the truth. But that's what it says everywhere. So everybody rewrites what they read, obviously. And then you always talk to me and somebody asks you, oh, tell me a little bit about your country. Oh, we were discovered by the Portuguese, in the 1490, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, oh my God, we need to stop this. And people don't
Mm-hmm.
know, actually.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been reading a lot more, and I actually told people, no, this is wrong. We belonged to a kingdom, and they actually prove that we were given to Portugal as a gift. One of our islands, we were given as a gift by the king of Congo, the reign of Matamba. He gave Sao Tome Island to the Portuguese as a gift in exchange for something else. And there's a letter they actually says is written and is in Portugal, and the Portuguese does not want to have give us access to that letter because they know they'll tell the truth, but it exists.
Mm-hmm.
So people need to know about this, and we need to stop.
Oh, I think she froze. I don't know if it's me. Maybe I'm frozen. Okay. We'll see when.
Yeah, I think Annie was frozen for a bit too.
Okay. I'll wait for Ani to get back in. But for time purposes, it's interesting because I think this is whenever one of the things that Ani said that I think is important. Ah, that's
Yep.
perfect.
Mhm.
All right. The something that impacted me that I noticed is because we've traveled, I think our relationship and understanding of Pan-Africanism is different because we've all been in different places and talked to different Black people from different places. And so now, instead of something that you just read in a book or that you just experienced in your local community, you're actually starting to notice the lies because you can't, you're witnessing it every time you travel.
I want to just add a little I want to clarify something a little bit. So I want to make it clear that even Haitian education, who gave us that connection, we still have work to do because we've learned about our pride and our origins and where we come from and all of it, but we still don't know enough. I think we lost Tanya again.
Mm-hmm.
But we still don't know enough of the details and the realities of every day of current life in Africa.
Mm-hmm.
So we did learn that that's where we come from. We did learn that we need to be proud of that. We did learn about all of it, but it's as if the continued growth and the continued culture of Africa is not something that we learn in school. The
Mm-hmm.
origins, yes, but what we need to know about now, what we need to know about our continued liberation as a whole group, as a wherever we are, that's something that we learn on our own and that we feel on our own, like you said, through travel, through people, through our communities. But that's not fully covered in school.
Yeah, yeah.
If
I
that
wouldn't
makes sense.
I wouldn't have thought it was. I mean, because there's no country in the Americas or in Africa, from what I have heard from people. I'm still waiting to hear if they're, but that has integrated a comprehensive Black inclusive world history and local history, because I know that I'll talk to folks in Colombia and they know things about Black folks from the US, but don't know things about Black folks from Colombia. Right. And so you'll talk to someone you'll have this idea of Africa, but you won't know about the Black people from around the corner from you. You know what I mean? And that's on purpose, right? And so I think that us having proximity to each other, for me, when I think of Pan-Africanism, it is about, and me identifying as a Pan-African, it's about acknowledging the fact that we have shared roots, about recognizing the fact that we are living in similar contexts, and the things that are being done to our communities are being done in collaboration with a plan that is specifically targeted towards literally every single Black community and Black country in the world. And so if we know that there is an orchestrated plan that is targeting all of Africa, Black communities, Black-led countries, then that means that we have a shared path forward, because we have to collaborate, because what's happening in Haiti is not just happening from the Haitian government. What's happening in Sao Tomé Principe is not just happening from the Sao Tomé Principe government. What's happening in the United States is not just, all of the countries that we live in are collaborating and co-conspiring to continue to perpetuate harm against Black people everywhere. And then we live in our countries and we think, well, this is what we're going through here and what I'm going through it. We have we're not able to connect with other people in other countries, so we can give a heads up, ayo, this is coming your way because we just signed a legislation for this, or this company just moved to your country and everybody's buying Airbnbs, or we have a bunch of vacation trips and they're buying up land over there. Or like, we hear about what's happening in our country and don't pay attention to how what's happening in our country is impacting other Black people in other countries, and then how what's happening over there is impacting us over here. We're not tapped into the coordination against us because we're not connected to each other.
And I think that also is on purpose. That's why there is also this perceived rivalry, or I don't even know how to call it, but this way that different people of African descendants are talking about each other based on the image that is projected of us. We are in this living this insidious attempt at not letting us get together. It creates this sentiment from one community to another that, oh, we're different from these other Black people. We're different from these, without understanding we are of the same community. This is our community, all of us together. That's the community. It's not this little community here and this little community there, and oh, we're better than this community, or we're better. That is the most insane thing I have heard. And for me, I don't understand. I mean, I don't want to say I don't, I know, I understand how it's happening, but I feel that we could move forward better together with that spirit of togetherness. Saying, like you said, all of these things that they're trying to, that we don't realize that we're living similar experiences in different places because c'est un travail qu'ils font ensemble.
I mean, well, we were just flowing with that. That wasn't even answering a specific question.
What I wanted to say as well is that I discovered I came across Pan-Africanism out of the continent when I was in London, not when I was in the continent. I don't think it's something that's really spoken about, maybe nowadays, more and more, because I think people already think that we are united. There's a lot of things that united us, but we don't really see it. But there's a lot of things as well that really disconnects us. People that come from abroad and try to, steal what we have and try to bring a different narrative from what we used to and what we have to listen. And unfortunately, this is where we are and where we stand right now. Yes, Jamila, I cut you.
Question. No, you didn't. You good. You're good. Do y'all think a collective consciousness or like, do you think more Black people need to be connected to Pan-Africanism and have an understanding of Pan-African? Yes. Why not? Yes, no. In order for us to really move forward.
Yeah, I think so. I think there is a completely disassociation in the continent. We know we have 55 countries. I always say we have 56 countries, yeah? I always include Somaliland. Yes, brothers and sisters. And we don't really connect in the sense that being here in DRC, it made me realize that everyone thinks that they are more African than the other person, right? I went to South Africa, 2 months ago, and they told me, the lady told me, oh no, you're not African, I am the real African. I told her, excuse me, what do you mean? She said, because I'm Zulu. I was like, yeah, and what?
That is wild.
And here in Congo, they all think, yes, we're the real Africans as well. I was like, people, we're just wasting our energies thinking who's more African than who. We should just, gather together, bring the synergy together, and just work as one. We won't get anywhere like that. I'm not better than you.
It's funny you said that. My best friend, who from DC, Black man, born and raised in DC. There's a very large Ethiopian population in Washington, D.C. I think two of the countries that I've had the most connection with a lot of different people from is Ethiopia and Nigeria. Right. So I've connected with, folks from Cameroon and Senegal and a lot of other places also. But I think as far as like population mass and where I live in the country and being in communities where there's a lot of African immigrants, Nigerians, Cameroonians also, and Ethiopians are like all over DC and Maryland and a lot of places in the country. Ethiopian brother got mad at my best friend and called him a nigger.
An Ethiopian called your friend a nigger?
A Black man called him a nigger. And because to him, he was a nigger, not him. I'm an African. I am a real Black person. I am an Ethiopian. We have not been colonized. I am the best type of African, the best type of Black person, and you are a nigger, right? And you are beneath me, so how dare you tell me no to something? And then I remember being in South Africa, traveling, and it was a Nigerian sister, and we were having a conversation, and she was talking about basically how, I'm not African. I'm like, okay. Nationally speaking, I am not South African, I'm not Nigerian, I'm not Ghanaian, I'm not. So as far as my nationality, I have no African nationality. You are correct. I was like, but I still identify with my roots as African, but I recognize the difference between being a person born in Africa and being a person who has no idea who my family is in Africa, right? That doesn't mean that just because my family was stolen and I can't identify it, that I can't still have this longing and ancestral connection to my roots. But the funny part was when we had to travel to Namibia, she was looking for her US passport because it would be easier for her to travel using the US passport versus her Nigerian passport. And I felt like being sarcastic. I was like, so you still gonna be African when we travel? I was like, we traveling with the same passport.
We all do that. We all do that.
Like, you searching for that passport right now. Meanwhile, like, I think her middle name was like Michelle. She had all the weave. Like, I'm like, you are very African with that Asian woman's hair on your head, right? Like, you know what I mean? And so like we were joking and we were like cracking jokes on each other, and it wasn't like real animosity, right? But that whole, you know, I'm Blacker, I'm African, all of that, I think it signals how we have a very superficial connection to what it means to be Black. Because if we haven't learned about our history, if we don't know about our realities, if we're not connected to each other, if we're not even aware of who we are in our own countries, and we're not aware of who we are in other countries, then even our connection to our own Blackness and our own Africanness is very superficial because it's not rooted in actual experience and human connection. It's rooted in something we read or something someone told us, but it's not rooted in real connection. And for me, that's why Pan-Africanism is important. It's having authentic, real connections that are not superficial, that are rooted in experiences, that are rooted in our funds of knowledge. And maybe we can't all travel, because similar to Sao Tomé Principe, the majority of my family a lot of folks in my family have never left the country. Right. And so when I talk about things, they look at me like, okay. And they'll say something Africa, and they'll talk about Africa, and I'm like, it's a country. I'm like, it's a continent, 50 plus countries. And they're like, we know. I'm like, no, but it's important. I'm like, and then they'll be like, oh girl, you going over there? Is it safe? And did you see any animals? I'm like, they do not ride lions and tigers to work. They have cars.
We're not hunting internet on the trees.
You know,
there's a video.
But then when I travel to Colombia or travel to other places, I'm like, you know, we're not all, you know, illiterate people who are just comedians and basketball players. Like in the US, like even the concept of Pan-Africanism is very, very rooted in some Black folks from the US who have traveled across the world to help spread that ideology. And people don't know that. And so I'm like, we need to really have real experiences with each other for us to have a real connection to our Blackness, our Africanness, and for us to have any chance of thinking that Pan-Africanism is important for us.
With it, I agree. I do want to.
I agree. I'm familiar. Oh, can you hear me?
Yeah, time. I know we're getting at time.
Sorry, just adding something else.
Oh,
can you hear me?
Yes.
Well,
now we can hear you.
Yeah, yeah. Most African person, as they call it, African person in my country. Just because I wrap my hair, I wear this, I wear my African.
I think it's hilarious that we have the same earrings on and didn't plan it.
And they say I love Africa too much. So
what?
Yeah.
I get too Black. I get too Black from Black people all the time. I get people telling me, why are you always talking about Black stuff? Like, why everything ain't got to be Black, Jamila. I'm like, everything ain't got to be Black, but everything ain't Black enough. So I'm gonna keep talking about it and being it and living it until, you know, like until it actually is not necessary. But we ain't there yet.
Yeah.
You know, we ain't there yet. Okay.
Yeah, sorry. I think that I was wanted to say something.
Yes, not.
One last thing I was gonna say. I was gonna say that like just like we were talking before, the media plays an extremely, extremely big role in that, because when Andy was talking about the channels, I'm like, in Haiti we over the years we've gotten a few, I think now there's a few Haitian channels, but TV5 is one that I knew, and a lot of our channels were, US-based channels. So we knew of Black people in the United States, what they showed us on TV. And that wasn't, so there was all the stereotypical stuff that they had about Black people in the US, and that's what we knew. And part of this disconnect that we're talking about, that I'm better than you and I know better than you, and moi je suis mieux que toi, moi je suis plus africain que toi, moi je suis plus noir que toi. That's a very big part of it. It is a very big part of it. We'll have to have a conversation about representation, because I had to learn about that and I had to learn the difference. Supporting Black communities, that's another conversation. I had to learn about that. I was dumb. I'm going to be honest. I was really dumb about it, but we have to talk about that.
Yeah. I just want to offer that even though people don't like the word ignorant, I would say that a lot of us, we weren't dumb. I don't think you were dumb, but we were purposefully made ignorant of certain things.
That is very true. That is very true.
Yeah.
And I agree with Nat. We should have those conversations next videos. Please, let's talk about those things.
Representation. Yes, I do love these conversations. Okay, well, we're closing out. What is one thing you want to leave folks who are watching this video with about Pan-Africanism, your experiences? One final closing thought you want to leave folks with?
One Love, Bobby Marley. One Love.
Hey.
We always watch that movie. You should watch that movie. You'll learn a lot, I think, about Pan-Africanism, about Black love, about belonging to the continent, about somebody that has not actually been born in the continent, but they feel the need to be there, to give something back. So I think it's we should watch that movie. One Love, Bob Marley.
For me, I will say be humble and want to learn. Don't stop looking, don't stop reading, don't stop listening, don't stop talking. Just keep going and try to learn so you can really see that connection. For me, one of the things that pains me the most is all of the stuff that I don't know about Africa, about us, about the struggle, the experiences, the life. I know a little bit from, like we said, traveling and talking to people, but there is so much to learn. There's so much to learn. So talk to people, yes, read, choose your reading well. Make sure that you are in those communities and that you are talking to people and that you are listening to different perspectives. Open your mind to the beauty that is our community. Don't just listen for, intellectual purposes. Listen for that connection. There is an experience that someone will share that will resonate, that you will feel in your soul more than just hearing about it, just so you could, write an article or, have a conversation. You feel it. For me, that's one of the things that I feel is the most important. It's opening yourself to seeing the beauty of this community and the solidarity and what we can be and what we are and what we were and all of it. It's just keep learning, keep feeling. If you have to, close your eyes and just listen and then feel that connection. It's essential. It's a very big part of who we are. And just feel it. Feel it.
Yeah. I would say that it is important for us, and not to get too, I said I wasn't going to make it academic, but it's important for us to remember a couple things. If we are outside of the continent of Africa and we are living in a country that is highly resourced, those resources have been stolen from Africa, period, point blank. If you are living in the United States or in Europe, or in particular, and you feel like, you have a great 401k or whatever, speaking for the US, you have your retirement, you have a nice house, you love your car, you get to shop, you have businesses and access to great internet, electricity, all of the things that are making you comfortable have been built by stealing from Africa. Period, point blank. The wealth comes from the land and the people. The land is there, and it needs to be returned back to the people, and but the wealth has also come from the people. And so part of the way that we can reconnect and pool those resources for us is by connecting to each other. Because if you can't control the land if you can't control the people. And so those resources are ours, but our wealth and our knowledge and the beauty of who we are is also in us. And as we reconnect, we empower ourselves to take our shit back. That's what I would say. Huh?
You're so right. And I said, and come back. There's a lot of us that leave the continent and we don't come back. We should come back. There's nothing better than coming back and, contribute to what is ours.
Thank you, ladies. I appreciate y'all.
Thank you. Obrigada, beijo.
One love. I also want to say one love for the women, one love for the queer folks, one love for the trans folks, one love for everybody.
Everybody.
Tchau, tchau.
Ça, c'est un espace qui gagne plusieurs langues.
Este é espaço multilingüe.
This is a multilingual space.
C'est un espace plurilingue.